Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there is this expectation of precision. It is very much like engineering.
Right. It is binary, and it is comforting.
Yeah, binary. Like you break your arm, the X-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points at the screen and says, well, there it is.
Because as humans, we really like things to be visible. We want our problems neatly categorized so we can, just fix them.
We do.
Eh.
But then you step into the world of home renovation. Specifically, you start opening up the walls of an older house, and suddenly that beautiful, precise X-ray machine is completely broken. You are looking at a diagnostic landscape that is, well, incredibly murky.
Oh, completely murky.
You literally cannot see what is hiding behind the drywall until you take a sledgehammer to it.
So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are opening up a stack of 2026 building codes and the latest data from the Horizon Home Survey to help you survive that exact sledgehammer moment.
That terrifying moment. Exactly. Think of this as an editorial strategy session right here at the Renology magazine. Our entire mission today is to decode the single most misunderstood line item in any renovation budget.
Right.
We are talking about the contingency fund.
And to really grasp why this matters, we need to ground this conversation in our current 2026 reality immediately. Construction costs have shifted significantly over the last few years.
They really have.
Right now, a mid-range kitchen remodel in a major metro area can easily hit $80,000 to $120,000.
Which is just a staggering number when you see it out loud.
It is. So that means a standard 15% contingency is not just a little rounding error on a contractor spreadsheet. We are talking about a very real $12,000 to $18,000 cash reserve.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah.
That is the price of a decent used car just sitting there in reserve.
Yeah.
So rather than just listing out some arbitrary rules, we are going to unpack exactly why you need that much cash, how those funds actually get legally released during a project, and ultimately how you can protect your own money from disappearing.
We really do need to start with the baseline numbers because before we can even discuss how to spend the contingency, we have to establish exactly why this specific pile of money needs to be so remarkably large in today's market.
Right.
Let us look at the hard data. According to the 2025 Horizon Home Survey, 38% of renovation projects go over budget. And the primary reason for this failure rate is unforeseen problems hidden in the home.
38% is a massive failure rate for budgeting. I mean, if almost 40% of people are busting their budgets, that tells me the initial budgets are fundamentally ignoring reality.
Exactly. And the geographic variance is huge. The national median spend on a minor kitchen remodel is $25,000. But when you look at major United States metros, that median leaps to over $51,000.
Wow, double.
More than double in some places. This massive swing is why the National Association of Home Builders recommends a 10 to 15% contingency for any home over 30 years old. However, in markets with older housing stock like Los Angeles or Boston, 15% is really the bare minimum.
Yeah.
If you are touching a historic home or doing a major structural addition, you are looking at a required 20 to 25% cash reserve.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I think homeowners hear that percentage, they see $15,000 sitting in a bank account, and they fundamentally misunderstand what that money represents.
Oh, they see it as a shopping spree.
Right. I like to think of the contingency fund like an insurance deductible rather than a gift card to a luxury home goods store. When you have car insurance, you do not intentionally crash your car into a tree just so you can use the deductible.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not. You have it there because you want to protect yourself from total financial ruin if something terrible happens. But people look at a $15,000 contingency and think, great, I can use that for the imported Italian marble instead of this standard ceramic tile.
That is the exact psychological trap that ruins projects. It is risk insurance for your project's budget and your timeline. It is not an upgrade slush fund. You have to mentally separate that money from your design budget.
But let me push back on this a little bit. I understand holding 20% for a 1920s bungalow where the pipes are practically made of hopes and dreams at this point.
Very true.
But what about a brand new build? If I am doing a new ground-up build, I have zero existing walls to hide bad plumbing. I am starting with a clean patch of dirt. Why do standard new builds still require a 5 to 10% contingency?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, New builds still face significant unknowns that have literally nothing to do with what is inside a wall. You are dealing with the earth and the local municipality.
Oh, right, the soil.
Yeah, the soil. For example, you might encounter severe hillside grading issues once the heavy machinery actually arrives on site. Then you have incredibly complex utility hookups. Dealing with, say, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power can introduce sudden delays, and time is money on a construction site.
Plus the materials themselves.
Right. Plus, we're living in a world of highly volatile commodity pricing. Lumber and copper prices can swing wildly between the day you sign the contract and the day the materials are actually ordered by the framing crew.
That makes perfect sense. The unknowns do not disappear. They just shift from the inside of the house to the outside of the house and into the supply chain.
Exactly.
So once you have this massive cash reserve set aside, how do you actually spend it? You mentioned there are strict rules governing how that money is legally and ethically released.
Yes. A properly managed contingency fund really only has 3 valid uses. The first use is for hidden conditions. This is the classic nightmare scenario.
Opening a wall and finding something terrifying.
Exactly. You open a wall and find asbestos wrapping the old HVAC ducts, which requires professional, legally mandated remediation. Or you pull up the subfloor and discover massive termite damage in the structural joists. These are non-negotiable repairs.
Because you cannot just cover them back up.
You literally cannot proceed with the project, nor will you pass your municipal inspections without fixing them first.
So hidden conditions are the true emergencies. But what if it is not an emergency? What if I just, change my mind about a finish?
That brings us to the second valid use, which is intentional allowance overages. Your contract might include a $10 per square foot allowance for floor tile. That is the baseline number the contractor used to price the job so you could get a loan.
Right.
But if you go to the showroom and fall in love with a $16 per square foot tile, the $6 difference for the entire square footage comes straight from your contingency. It is a conscious choice. It is a highly controlled form of scope creep.
And the third valid use.
True scope creep. This happens when you, the homeowner, formally request an expansion of the project midstream. You might be standing in your newly gutted living room and say, hey, while the walls are open, let us add commercial-grade soundproofing between the floors.
Which is always tempting once the walls are open.
Very tempting. And a professional contractor will process this with a formal change order, and that money draws from the contingency you approve.
Okay, so hidden conditions, intentional allowance overages, and true scope creep. But we are looking at this through the lens of 2026. What exactly is different now compared to just a couple of years ago?
What is fascinating here is the economic paradox we are seeing in 2026. While general interest rates stabilized after the wild volatility of previous years, the rates for home equity lines of credit remain quite elevated.
Which means borrowing emergency money halfway through a project is incredibly expensive right now. You do not have the safety net of cheap credit anymore, so running out of cash is a massive risk.
Precisely. Making a mid-project cash grab is dangerous. But the bigger trap in 2026 revolves around the Inflation Reduction Act tax credits.
Wait, let me play the eager homeowner here. Because if I am utilizing an Inflation Reduction Act tax credit to save money on a highly efficient new heat pump, shouldn't my overall budget actually decrease? I am getting money back from the government. Why would taking advantage of a tax credit leave my contingency vulnerable?
This raises an important question, and it is honestly the biggest trap of the year. Adding tax-credited scope requires opening walls. To install that highly efficient heat pump, you almost always have to upgrade to a 200-amp electrical panel to handle the load.
Okay, that makes sense.
And under the 2026 code updates, specifically the strict enforcement of Title 24 in California, the state treats an upgraded electrical panel as the brain of a newly modernized electrified home.
And the code dictates that you cannot attach a brilliant new brain to a degrading nervous system.
Exactly. Once your electrician opens the wall to run the new conduit, the city inspector gets involved. If they discover old, ungrounded wiring connecting to other parts of the house, that wiring must be replaced to meet the new fire safety and seismic resilience standards.
Oh, wow. So it snowballs.
It completely snowballs. The government gives you a credit that covers the physical heat pump appliance, but the mandatory supporting electrical work completely drains your contingency fund. You went in for a discounted appliance and walked out with a mandatory whole house electrical rewire.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because to truly grasp how quickly these mandatory code updates consume a budget, we need to move from these abstract rules to actual physical teardowns. We have some incredible data from the 2026 Renology network to look at. Real projects with real dollars attached.
We do. And before we share the specific project details, we have to note that the California Department of Industrial Relations prevailing wage data shows that labor, not materials, is the primary driver of these unforeseen costs today. Skilled trade rates in Los Angeles County are among the highest in the country.
So it's not the cost of the new PVC pipe that hurts you. It's the cost of the master plumber's time to figure out how to route that pipe around an unexpected obstacle.
Right, the labor hours just tick up and up.
Let us look at the stress test. We have 3 real projects. Project number 1 is a kitchen remodel in Sherman Oaks.
So the initial plan for the Sherman Oaks kitchen was to keep the existing plumbing layout exactly where it was to save money. But during demolition, they revealed a completely corroded cast iron drain stack hiding inside the wall.
Ugh, cast iron.
Yeah, cast iron from the mid-century is notorious for rusting from the inside out. It looks fine on the exterior, but inside is a ticking time bomb of sludge and degrading metal.
And you cannot just glue a modern plastic pipe to a crumbling iron stack.
No, you cannot legally or safely attach a modern PVC system to it. The inspector will fail it immediately. The cost to completely remove the cast iron, reroute the modern plumbing to meet current code, and patch the resulting structural subfloor damage was $8,200.
Wow.
And that was paid directly from their 15% contingency.
Over $8,000 gone before the drywall is even hung. Project number 2 is a bathroom addition in Eagle Rock.
This one is painful because it involves the earth. During excavation for the new foundation of this bathroom addition, the contractor discovered a portion of the existing home's foundation was unreinforced masonry.
Which is basically what? Old brick and crumbling mortar.
Exactly. Is old brick held together by degrading mortar, which is very common in pre-1940s homes, but highly dangerous in an earthquake zone.
Let me guess, the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety stepped in and halted the entire job.
They halted the work immediately. They required a comprehensive footing upgrade. You have to pour new concrete and use specialized rebar to tie the new addition's foundation to the old unreinforced masonry safely. That mandatory upgrade costs $12,500.
Just to keep building the bathroom.
Just to keep going. It was pulled straight from the 20% contingency they wisely set aside.
Okay. Project number 3 is in Mar Vista. This is a detached garage being converted into an accessory dwelling unit.
These conversions are incredibly popular right now, but changing the use of a structure triggers intense municipal scrutiny. Converting this simple garage triggered a mandatory seismic retrofit requirement under the 2026 codes.
Because it wasn't built to be lived in originally.
Right. A standard old garage is basically a flimsy wooden box. It lacked the strength to be a habitable dwelling. If a tremor hits, lateral forces will just fold it over.
So what is the mechanical fix for a flimsy wooden box? I imagine that means you're suddenly paying for massive structural engineering.
They had to hire a structural engineer to draw up plans for new shear walls and foundation bolting. A shear wall is essentially a highly reinforced, rigid structural panel that gets bolted directly to the foundation and the roof framing. It takes all that lateral shaking force and distributes it safely down into the ground.
Okay.
It turns a flimsy box into a rigid, safe cube. But building that skeleton inside an existing structure is incredibly labor-intensive. The engineering plans, plus the required physical labor and materials, cost nearly $15,000.
Unbelievable.
Again, drawn entirely from the contingency fund.
You look at those 3 projects and a striking pattern emerges. None of these massive expenses were for visible, enjoyable features. Nobody paid $15,000 for a spectacular lighting fixture or a beautiful custom kitchen island. Every single dollar went to invisible infrastructure.
That is the ultimate truth of renovation. A budget is almost never broken by a splurge on high-end faucets. It is broken by the invisible secrets of an old house. The crumbling foundation footing, the leaky pipe inside a wall, the outdated electrical system.
Because invisible infrastructure can instantly consume $15,000, you need strict contractual boundaries. You need to dictate exactly who has the authority to sign those checks. You cannot just leave a pile of cash on the table and hope the contractor uses it wisely. How do we actually protect the money?
This is where we transition into managing the money and vetting the contractor. There are 3 critical questions every single homeowner must ask a contractor before signing a legally binding contract. The first question is, how do you handle contingency funds?
And what is the green flag answer we were looking for?
The answer must involve separate line items and formal change orders. The contractor should confidently state that the contingency is written into the contract as a dedicated standalone line item. Any use of those funds must require a formal change order detailing the exact labor and materials.
Meaning you have to agree to it first.
Yes. You, the homeowner, must physically sign that document before the work begins.
So no casual verbal agreements, no contractor saying, hey, we found a problem, but we went ahead and fixed it to save time, just add it to the final bill.
Never accept a handshake agreement on overages. It is your money. The second question to ask the contractor is, what are the common surprises in this specific neighborhood?
I think this is such a brilliant vetting tool because it tests their local expertise. It proves whether they actually know the soil and the history of the zip code.
Exactly. If you are renovating a 1920s craftsman home, your contractor should instantly bring up the high probability of finding knob and tube wiring or lath and plaster walls that need remediation.
And if they don't,
This brings us to a major psychological trap. If a contractor walks through an old house and tells you they do not expect any surprises, they are likely weaponizing your own optimism against you.
because they know you want the lowest possible bid and they know you want to believe the project will be easy.
Right. They give you a low baseline bid just to win the job, fully planning to use the change orders from those inevitable surprises to make up their actual profit margin later. That is the lowball trap. And the third question to ask your contractor is, how do you separate necessary repairs from requested upgrades?
This goes back to the condition discovery versus homeowner choice distinction we talked about earlier.
Yes. A good contractor will explain that a necessary repair, like finding a rotted floor joist, is presented as a condition discovery. They physically show you the problem, explain why the municipal code requires the fix, and price it fairly.
Makes sense.
A requested upgrade, like you suddenly wanting skylights, is treated differently, with a clear explanation of how your choice impacts the timeline and the remaining budget.
Let me ask a logistical question about the actual financing of all this. Because borrowing money is so expensive right now, can a homeowner simply keep the contingency fund out of the official bank loan to save on loan interest and just promise the bank they will pay cash out of pocket if an emergency happens?
I strongly warn against that approach. It is a recipe for stalled projects. If you're using a financing product like an FHA 203K loan or a dedicated construction loan, the lender must see the full 15 to 20% contingency included from day one.
Why do they care where the money comes from as long as I say I have it in my checking account?
Because lenders hate risk. They know that if you hit a $15,000 seismic retrofit requirement and you do not actually have the liquid cash you promised, the project stops. You end up with a half-finished house that the bank cannot sell to recoup their money.
Oh, right. The bank is protecting their asset.
Exactly. Including the contingency in the loan from the start guarantees the funds are formally earmarked, preventing catastrophic work stoppages.
But if it's sitting in the loan, who does that money actually belong to? Homeowners worry that if the bank approves a $100,000 loan, the contractor will just invent ways to spend all $100,000.
It remains the homeowner's money. This is a crucial point to understand. If the project completes without major unforeseen issues, the money is returned to you, or it is simply never drawn from the loan principal, meaning your final loan balance is much lower.
It is not a tip for the contractor.
No, the contingency is not a guaranteed bonus for the contractor. Unused funds are your reward for a well-executed, smooth project.
So what does this all mean? We have looked at the data, the code changes, the physical stress tests, and the contracts. The ultimate editorial verdict from our team at the Renology magazine is this. Prioritizing needs over wants early in the project is the core of smart budget management. Your contingency is not a sign of poor planning. It is the most essential part of a successful plan.
It protects your massive financial investment from the two biggest risks in renovation, the secrets hidden by your home's previous owners and your own evolving vision.
We want to give you a specific homework assignment for this week. If you were in the planning stages of a renovation, you need to review your draft construction contract. Look at it closely and demand that the contingency is listed as a dedicated, separate line item with a clearly defined change order process. Make sure you understand exactly who holds the pen when it comes to authorizing a release of those funds.
And I want to leave you with a final concept to chew on as you review those contracts. We established that unused contingency funds are essentially a financial reward returned to the homeowner for a well-planned project. But think about the psychology of the job site. How might a homeowner proactively incentivize their contractor to keep those hidden condition discoveries as inexpensive as possible without sacrificing the safety and integrity of the build?
Wow, turning the contractor from an adversary into a partner by gamifying the savings. That completely flips the script on how we write these construction agreements. Something for all of you to seriously think about before you swing that first sledgehammer. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your walls strong and your budget stronger.